Are you hearing a lot from your constituents back home?
Constantly. The phones are ringing off the hook. We literally can't pick up the phone fast enough, and it's people on both sides of it. It's people who are strongly against and people who are strongly for, and I assume that will persist.
That was Congresswoman Slotkin talking about the challenges of representing a swing district during an impeachment inquiry. It's something my next guest can relate to. Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, a New York Democrat. He sits on the Intelligence Committee. His district in the Hudson Valley is split pretty evenly between registered Democrats and Republicans, and he joins us now on the phone. So, Congressman, let me ask you, we heard that Congresswoman, that colleague of yours, a freshman Democrat from a swing district, she sounds conflicted. What are you hearing? Have you made up your mind when it comes to a full floor vote how you're going to vote for impeachment, and how many of your fellow Democrats are on the fence right now?
What I can tell you is that, the facts and the evidence are clear, and they point in the direction of a serious abuse of presidential power. We're talking about pressuring a foreign leader using taxpayer-funded military assistance, using other official acts like White House visits to smear a political opponent, using the help of a foreign leader. And I believe that's unacceptable. I just don't think any president can do that. So I'm going to support the impeachment process, send the matter to the Senate for trial. I don't take any pleasure in it. I think it's a sad day. But I do think the president has left us no choice by his conduct, and we need to do the right thing.
Are you pretty confident that at the end, almost all Democrats feel the same way that you do? While you may not want to be here at this moment in history, you've been left no choice. We've heard some still pushing for the idea of censure, others still really conflicted as they get down to decision day.
Look, I'm sure there's a diversity of opinion, except everyone I know believes the president has to be held accountable in some way, shape, or form. The censure option doesn't make any sense to me because the president hasn't admitted wrongdoing. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't had his allies on Capitol Hill propose that he should acknowledge the wrongfulness of his conduct and seek a lesser injunction than a lesser penalty than impeachment. Part of the problem here is that the president continues to obstruct the investigation and also to just lie willfully and repeatedly to the American public about what he did. I don't know why we'd be negotiating against ourselves in that context. I don't think any Democrat should be doing that unless the president, offers an apology and an admission of wrongdoing, which of course is not going to be forthcoming, and it's part of the same stubbornness and willful disregard for our Constitution and our laws that have brought us to this point. And that vote is going to be tougher for some Democrats than others, but I think in the end you're going to see overwhelming consensus that this is an important step to hold the president accountable.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, as you know, but listen, I expected from the president, and I'm getting used to over the last few years to not be as surprised by things anymore, but I would have bet good money, Congressman, a few weeks ago, if you asked me, that Republicans would have taken the position, listen, he screwed up. He shouldn't have done what he did, but he shouldn't be removed from office. Instead, I saw with you, your colleagues on the other side of the aisle on the Intel and then later at Judiciary, everybody taking the position, maybe with the exception of Congressman Hurd, that he did nothing wrong. And it was your guys' fault for having the temerity to having these hearings. Are you surprised that there is near unanimity of lockstep support for what the president did, given that basically Congress is turning over its check and balance authority going forward, whether it's even a Democratic president, with this kind of a precedent they're setting?
Look, it's disappointing. I can't say it's surprising at this point. One of the things we've learned is that we've got a lot of followers down here and very few leaders. And when the president will willfully deny and misrepresent what we all know happened, what the overwhelming body of evidence establishes beyond peradventure, Conduct he has admitted, after all, conduct he has bragged about and said should include the Chinese going after Joe Biden. His White House chief of staff came out and told us all why they did it and why they withheld military aid. He told us to get over it. So the problem is that the president refuses to acknowledge his wrongdoing, and the members of his own party, unfortunately, don't have the independence to stand up to him and to say, look, what you did was wrong. If they wanted to argue that the sanction should be something less than impeachment, or that we got an election coming up and that should be a factor, I mean, a bunch of us could engage that argument. I might not agree with it, but we could engage on it. But to deny that anything wrong happened is to really do a disservice to the Constitution. It sets a terrible example.
Last thing, let's assume this plays out the way we think in the House, and maybe the numbers are a little different, but at the end, the majority of representatives vote for the 2 articles of impeachment, and it's moved up to the Senate for the trial. Do you see any scenario, whether there's new evidence, whether Justice Roberts plays a more active role into getting to the bottom of this, do you see any scenario where 20 Republican senators would come around to saying that, yes, a high crime and a misdemeanor occurred and we need to impeach the president?
Look, at this stage, it seems like very few Republicans in the Senate are willing to do the right thing, frankly. But I do believe this is still a fluid situation. There is still very serious information out there that is continuing to be developed. We are moving forward because we're not going to be held hostage by a bunch of delay tactics. But that doesn't mean that the facts and the evidence won't continue to be fully developed. And it's very stark. And so I'm not giving hope up. I'm not giving up hope on anybody. But what I can tell you is whether the Senate does the right thing or not is frankly beside the point when it comes to my responsibilities as a member of the House to take my oath seriously, to stand up for the Constitution, to come back to my constituents and say, you know, there's right and there's wrong, and I'm going to do what's right.
Congressman, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
All right, everybody. When we come back, we will switch gears. A mass shooting in Jersey City where a police officer, one of the victims at a kosher market, the target. We're going to show you how this could be part of a disturbing pattern we've been seeing over the past few years, the rise in hate crimes.